Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. Doing business and life with a purpose, serving others and achieving success. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. We created this show for you because we want everyone to learn how to do business, but also life to make an impact in the world. How will you serve today and what kind of impact will you make today? Let's start today. And I'm excited to have my guest. We just talked in the green room before the show. And when somebody has in their website, Heart of Business, I'm in love. And yes, two guys can be in love and they can say that. It's okay. It's 2024 now. I want to welcome Mark to the show.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here, Steve.
Well, I've got to know, and this has been dying. I've been looking at this calendar appointment for this show. Heart of Business. How'd that come about? What was your thought?
Okay. So there's the funny story, and then there's the deeper meaning. So the funny story is that way back, this I've had it since 2001 is when I first was setting it up, and I was trying to get marksilver.com, and a buddy of mine from high school who, at that point was doing some web design, was like, well, the site marksilver.com was already taken by an erotic photographer. It didn't seem to be on, and blessings to him. It's awesome, but not on brand for what I was up to. And it wasn't available. And he said, well, you're doing this heart thing. What about Heart of Business? And I'm like, okay. And so it was kind of accidental how I lucked into that at the time. And it really became the name of the business. The deeper piece, of course, is that I've been integrating Sufi spiritual teachings with business, with nitty-gritty of business, and the Sufis are all about the heart. It's all about the heart, and so Heart of Business just, in retrospect, seemed divinely ordained. And if you want to talk about it like that, it just seemed obvious. But how I got there was pretty hilarious.
It's a great story. Sufi, I saw that in your bio, and I'm glad you mentioned it. Can we get a little deeper and a little better understanding what Sufi is?
Yeah, so Sufism is the mystical study in Islam. If you've heard of the poet Rumi, the best-selling poet in America, he was Sufi, Sufi Islamic, Sufi Muslim, hundreds of years ago. And what Sufism does, like nearly any mystical path that I'm familiar with, is it's how do you access the love, the source of love? How do you access the oneness? How do you access that directly? How do you carry that in your heart? How do you embody that on a day-to-day basis? It's less about the outer forms and more about the inner reality. It's of course both, because structure supports the inner and the inner supports the structure. That's a whole other topic. But in essence, that's what it's about. It's like, can we be the love in this world, in the places that need the love the most, where it seems the most absent?
I love that. Now I know what Sufi is. It's great. It's a great name, by the way. I love it. Sufism. We talked about it earlier, before the show started, about love and business, tying those words together. Doesn't happen a lot. It's usually the opposite. How do you do that when you're working with people?
Well, so it's less a how and more just doing it.
Doing it. Okay.
I think that people are nervous about it because they're worried about their survival, right? They're like, oh, if I delve into the love, if I delve into these softer, squishier pieces, is it going to compromise my ability to make a living? And these are legitimate fears. Like, these are concerns. There's some people that are just reactive and they're, I don't want to, I don't want anything to do with emotions. And it's like, well, I probably won't end up working with those folks. But but it becomes so obvious as soon as you start to get your hands into it, that the more that you're in connection with love, the easier things become. Why is it that somebody would spend in a significant amount of money with your business? Yes, you have to be relevant, and yes, you have to provide something that they're needing, but they need to trust you. They need to know that you care. They need to know that you're really present. And what is that? That's love. I don't know another word for it. If you have a team, if you have employees, yes, you have to pay them well, you have to care for them well, but you also like they have to again, they have to know that you care. You have to know that that they have to know that you care about them. That's love. And with my team, every Monday morning we have a team meeting, and we always spend some time talking about the personal, even though it's valuable business time, because I care. We care about each other as people. And it makes us actually more efficient, and it makes us more powerful in the work that we do for our clients.
Yeah. I like that a lot, Mark, especially now with getting past COVID, interest rates, the economy. And I tell people all the time, things are always going to happen in business. Some worldly stuff, a war, Ukraine, whatever.
Right.
But being able to take, like I could see an owner going, I don't want to love my employees. I want them to do their job and make the money. Company makes money and I pay them. What do you say to something like that?
Um, I'm going to say like, what's your turnover rate? you know,
Yeah.
how much does it cost to train somebody new, especially in a really significant position, but in any position?
Yeah.
This whole quiet quitting thing that had been happening is people like are fed up with being treated like machines and treated like they don't matter.
Yeah.
Um, in a past life, when I was a paramedic, I was in a union and I was a shop steward, and so I was overjoyed to see all these union wins recently, because all a union is an expression of the fact that the company isn't caring about the workers. When the workers are cared for and they feel like they're cared for, a union isn't necessary. The only time a union's necessary is when people don't feel safe and they don't feel like they're being cared for. But when you care for people, and this has been shown over and over and over and over again, so many case studies, so many different companies and situations, that if you care for your people, then they care for you. And
Yeah.
if you don't care for people, then they move on eventually. And I think that people that are caught in that purely utilitarian mindset around employees are really losing out. I
Yeah.
think they're doing their company harm.
Yeah. And that caring, you've said it multiple times, which I love. Again, it's like a taboo word in business. Play. I mean, you got a great employee, care about them. Your wife's
Right.
pregnant, go to the hospital, have your baby. No, no, we got work. I mean,
Oh
that's
my
another.
God. Years ago, somebody on our team, um, was who had always been really good, was suddenly making a lot of mistakes. And I just said, okay, whoa, stop, what's going on? And they told me that their sister had been diagnosed with cancer, and they were like totally torn up inside. And I'm like, oh my God, of course, of course. And, of course, we made accommodations and gave them some time, tried to create some spaciousness for them. We're a small company. We don't have a lot of duplication, just a handful of people. And they understand that. And so we kind of worked with each other to try to make things work. But the mistake stopped happening just because we could show the care. There was room for her emotions. There was room for what was actually happening. And if I'd come down punitively, it wouldn't have stopped the mistakes from happening.
No,
It's not going to
no,
cure her sister of cancer. I mean,
no.
it's ridiculous to and I'll say, even and above the business case for caring for your people, we're all of us human. We spend so much time at work. I refuse to live in a world where people don't care about each other. Like I'm just not going to live that life. I want to enjoy my life. I want to enjoy the people around me, and for me, that means that there's love present and then there's care present. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny how jobs are so much different than, like, if you go to a library and you go all the time and it just becomes a negative, just something happens or any place like that, you stop going.
Right.
Well, why isn't an employee on the employee side just go, I got to find another job? Well, FOMO, I don't want money, family, I got to pay for this. So that's so well said. Here's the other thing about caring that I'm hearing from you, and answer this is the more you care, the more open. In this case, they weren't, for whatever, because we're all human. But I think when you care, do they people your employees start opening up to you for stories like that? Hey, Mark, by the way, my sister got cancer. I'm not doing well. Right?
Yeah. Right, right. And I can then be honest with them, going, I'm kind of a mess. Something's going on in my
Yeah.
life. Here's what something's going on with one of my kids, if something's going on. And then they have more space for me. And I'm like, I can even warn them saying, gosh, I've got this hard thing going on this week. If I'm more reactive, it's not personal. Just tell me that I'm being more reactive. You don't deserve to receive that. But
Yeah.
if I'm upset, and then often just saying that means that it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
I don't, so yeah, there's a lot here, but it's I have never. I'll tell you one more short story about this. I had again somebody who's a past employee. You've been around for 20 years. We've had a few people
Yeah.
come stay for a while and then move on to their next thing. But he was having something really hard going on in his life, and we spent like a meeting that had been scheduled for an hour. We spent like 45, 50 minutes on this personal stuff. And there was a thought in the back of my mind, gosh, are we really going to get the thing done that we need to get done together? But after all of that, he felt so relieved. We felt so kind of open and connected that the practical thing got done in 10 minutes and we were done right on time. And I've seen that over and over and over and over again, where the practical pieces often come together very quickly if we make room for the heart.
Yeah. That's a great story. And here's the bottom line, Mark, and for the audience, you're still in business.
Mhm.
You made accommodations. I mean, 95% of the time or more, when you do these accommodations to care for a great employee, you're not going out of business
No,
ever.
no. No,
Yeah.
it creates loyalty. It creates good feelings. I mean, I have still really good relationship with with both of these people I've talked about, even though they've moved on. I mean, they're still, they're still willing to refer. There's still really good relationships there. And
Yeah.
business is so dependent on the network of good relationships that we have,
Yeah.
especially smaller businesses. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, that leads to the question because I think the past affects all this. For you, what part of your past is hardest to let go?
I'll tell you, um, this is a funny thing because so in a past life, I was a paramedic. I already mentioned it once. I feel like I can be a little too attached to that because it was like I was in my 20s. I was working in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was in the 911 system, and it was exciting. It's kind of a superhero kind of job, lights and sirens, and the knife and gun club, and all the stuff. I did get burnt out on it, and that's a whole nother story. But I can feel um, how I'm still a little bit attached to that identity. And it was a really disorienting thing to let go of such a powerful identity. Say, yeah, I'm a paramedic, to say like, oh, oh yeah, I have a business, or yeah, it's a different thing, and it's hard to let go of sometimes these peak experiences. I'm in my mid 50s. That life is behind me. I'm never going back there. There was a point in my life where if I could play, even though I knew I would never would, like if I wanted to, I could go back there. That door is shut. And I think that really letting go of the past especially those kind of peak moments or identities can be really hard. And I can feel where it's affected me as a business owner. I mean, obviously, I have some really good stories I can tell clients, which can be helpful,
Yeah.
but I can also I feel like I'm past it now. But earlier in the business, I realized that I was bringing that topic up too much. Like I was telling war stories instead of being useful, instead of being a servant, servant's heart,
Yeah.
instead of saying something that's because I think it's going to be genuinely useful. I was telling it because it brought me a certain amount of nostalgia or pleasure. And that's not helpful. It's one thing my wife or friend saying, hey, can I tell some stories? Because I need to kind of work, like get through this or, deal
Yeah.
with it. But for working with clients, it was not helpful. And I had to really become conscious of that. And I think that's important whenever we move on to a new aspect, like that we let ourselves grieve. Like really, I had to really grieve letting go of that time in my life.
That story is a big tip, Mark, for any entrepreneur out there starting, because that's a problem with every entrepreneur, especially when you go from a different industry. You went from EMS to launching this heart-based business of coaching. And a lot of times people stop. They go, I just can't do it. And you work through it. You're still working through it. And you always will, but you had the ability to keep moving forward, right?
Yes. 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 And that can work. I mean, like, yeah, because somebody can come out of, I've seen a lot of people come out of the corporate world
Mm.
to want to become self-employed or start a small business, and they had a big title and a big pay, and like, I mean, they're quality people, they were doing good work, but then they're like, I mean, it's not really fair to say no, they were a nobody, but it's like that's how the mind interprets it because they let go of all that status. That can be hard. That can be
Yeah.
hard. And embracing um, something like entrepreneurship, it's not, if your business gets to the point where you've had some success and you can, oh yeah, it's like that's been part of my healing too, is that our business has been successful. It's 23 years later, and I have a successful business, and it's
Yep.
wonderful. But the but that transition can be challenging to really um, grieve the old and embrace the new.
And you give people hope. I love hearing 23 years. 323 doesn't matter. You kept stuck with it. And the best part is you're helping and serving others, which is beautiful. That leads to a great question that we talked about in the green room. And how's being a dad affect your ability to be in service? And I'm not a dad, which is okay. God said, you're going to be dad to others, and I love it. But I think of sleepless nights, poops, and it's like,
Yeah.
what's your answer to that? It's going to be interesting.
So right now we have twin sons who now are teenagers. They're 15, and it's a different type of parenting now than it was when they were little, of course. Um, uh, you know, um, the way that I think a lot of the way it affected me um, is a lot of what I was talking about before about the willingness to show love and the willingness. Like I was not going to be the kind of parent or the kind of dad who didn't cry in front of my kids, or it's like I'm a man, I cry, and and I care, and I'll say I love you, and I'll hug you, and I'll kiss you, and like I'm going to show affection, um and so I think that that's really something that landed very strongly with me, because when I was young, I was pretty masked. My emotions were pretty masked when I was a teen and when I was a young adult, and it took a lot to break out and let my emotions show. And I wanted that to be present, and of course, it's informed my business. The other thing that occurs to me, there's so many things that I'm sure I could list, but another thing that occurs to me about how I was affected is that a lot of times I was really exhausted in the early years,
Mm.
especially, and I still had to show up. And when you show up, and this is something that I'm grateful to my Sufi teachers, my sheikh and my Sufi teachers for teaching me, is that I could show up kind of pushing through, like another cup of coffee and toughen up and just like push through. But I've noticed that when I show up as I am, maybe I'm exhausted, maybe I'm a little fuzzy, there's a different kind of strength that can emerge. There's a
Mm.
kind of tender strength. There's like a presence that I can have. And it brings out a different quality in myself, and it brings a different quality to client interactions or team interactions or the work that I do. There's a tenderness. And I think that that tenderness, especially in the work that I do, has been one of the ingredients of our success, that I've been willing to be tender. I've been willing to be vulnerable, that I don't have to be tough. That was something that I definitely learned as a paramedic. Like, okay, EMS, be
Yeah,
tough.
sure.
You're wearing the uniform. Like, there was still compassion there because it's medicine,
Yeah.
it's not law enforcement, it's medicine. And so there's still softness and tenderness there and caring for people, but it was still much, it was still emergency services. And so for me to kind of just have space to allow my heart to be present, to let my tenderness be present, to not spend extra energy trying to be something, trying to be in a space that I'm not. I think actually really contributed to the success that I've had and the quality of the business that we've created.
Yeah. What you're talking about too is we're close to the same age. And remember, I grew up in 61, but 60s and 70s, I'm a sports guy. You got to be a tough guy. You broke your leg, you go out there and play. I got a
Mhm.
concussion. I want to go back on and play.
Mhm.
Craziest thing in the world. And
Right.
that's what you're talking about. I
Yeah.
have no problem crying now. My wife calls me a baby sometimes in a good way. It's so loving.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
us men need to show emotion more. And we run a lot of these businesses. I'd love to see more women do it, but I love what you said with that. Is the other thing too with being a dad in your personal life, how much that falls into your professional life as well?
Yeah. Well, I think that, there's it's I mean, it's almost a cliche, even though that it's completely true, is that when you have kids, it's one of those things that helps you realize what's important. There's a lot of things that can do that.
Yep.
You don't need kids to realize what's important in life. But for me, it was one of the things that helped me realize that. And so, I'm not willing to work in the evening. I'm not willing to work on the weekends. I'm not willing to start work super early in the morning. I was wanting to be there for them. I remember, I made time. Uh, we'd read this fabulous kids book about, oh God, I forget the title of it, but it was like Friday mornings, and it was about this father who took his son to breakfast every Friday morning before going to work. And I'm like, you know what? I have my own business. I can do that. I just
Yeah.
carved out Tuesdays, and until relatively recently, I was taking both the kids out to breakfast every Tuesday morning, and then we would go do something fun, and I would get to work around 11 or noon that day. And that really, it did two things. One is like it helped me be present with them, and it helped me be present with myself. But it also helped me realize, like, you know what? This is not a job. This is a business. I can make it the way I want to. I
Yeah.
could just,
Yep.
if I had appointments scheduled and somebody wanted to meet me with Tuesday, I'd say, no, I'm full up Tuesday.
Yeah.
We
Busy.
need to meet another day. I'm busy. I'm meeting with my kids, and we're going to the park or whatever we're doing, science museum, something. So um, that was one of those really big moments of awakening for me when I realized that.
That's a big awareness, Mark, because your business, I'm going to go back to this. You're still in business 23 years. People go, oh, I can't take Tuesdays off. Oh my God, my business is going to fit. No, it won't.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm getting excited because you're a proof. I love that you said what you said because you know what? You have a fuller heart and probably a better business, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
That business book classic, Jim Collins, Good to Great, that I think everybody of a certain generation read, and I don't know if people are reading it anymore, but it's amazing,
Yeah.
amazing, solid book. um, the research that he and his team of MBA students did is that they showed that the CEOs of the companies that did fabulously well, there was no, like, the CEOs that worked 7 days a week and worked 80-hour weeks had the exact same results as the ones who worked 30 to 40-hour weeks and took the weekends off and left work at 5 p.m. Like, it wasn't that the extra work didn't
Yeah.
give extra results.
It
And
doesn't
that,
ROI. Yeah. The
it,
ROI doesn't increase because, I
yeah,
work 80 hours, you work 40. I'm going to make, 10 times more money. No,
yeah,
there's so
no,
many variables involved with that. Well,
right.
you know what? I could talk to you all day, but we're running out of time. One of my favorite questions of this show. How did I'm the same age as you, so I understand. So for you young millennials listening to this, you can reach out to me or Mark. We'll explain it later. How did growing up with punk rock in the 80s affect your outlook on life, but also in business?
So here's the deal. Um, Punk was in the DC hardcore scene, in the in the 1980s, in the early mid 1980s, um, was like really taught me that capitalism is trash. That's a whole conversation, me being in business and having like a strong critique of capitalism, because being a merchant and being in business, trade and commerce has existed for a long time, like
Yep.
as long as humans have been around. But capitalism is very specific and it's only been around for a few hundred years. But it's like it taught me that it's okay to challenge it, that it's important to challenge authority. It taught me that it was important to have a collective care, like to care for each other. There was like a lot of anarchism in the punk scene, and so it's like we can do things. We don't have to wait for an authority to do something. We can just like get our hands on it, and we can make something like. I wasn't ever in a band, but friends of mine were. It's like, you just pick up instruments and you just go do
Okay.
it. And you don't have to wait to be like whatever level, like you can become excellent in the process of doing it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be excellent first. You don't have to have an authority, and you can do something really valuable and still have a really strong critique of what is going on in society.
Right. Right. Well, and it's funny you say bands because I just had a thought. Punk rock bands were the first entrepreneurs because you're right. They just pick up, get some instrument. Well, what do people do today? I want to be a life coach. Nothing wrong with it. I'm going to start coaching people
Right.
and
Right.
I'll figure it out. It's
Right.
so you just came up with something that could be $1 million idea. Punk rock bands were the first entrepreneurs. Well,
Right.
this has been so good, Mark, and I know the audience is going to love it. If they want to find you, how can they reach out to you?
So our business lives at heartofbusiness.com. And I published a book, Heart Centered Business, Healing from Toxic Business Culture so your small business can thrive. That's a good way to get started to see if, when you get in depth to what the work that we do, like, does it really resonate? Like a book is a small investment, or you can check out our newsletter and be on our email newsletter. But those are the places that I would find us.
Awesome. Thank you again, Mark. It's been a pleasure. I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. And as I always say, I love podcasts. You can listen to it over again. He's given you so many $1 million nuggets here. I'm serious. They could turn into $1 million for you, in my eyes, of course. I might be a little biased being the host, but that doesn't matter. So listen to it again. Write a review. Go to Apple, go to different podcasts, YouTube, whatever. If you like what you're seeing and hearing, I'd love that so other people can enjoy Mark and some of my other fantastic guests. Don't forget, I've launched a TV show called Together We Serve, and that's Fridays, 2 p.m. Pacific and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And I want to see all of you at our next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart.